Hello and welcome to our last bulletin for the day. We're live from the News Hub at Adesawe, Kanda and Accra. You can follow our live stream on Facebook and on 3news.com. I'm Stephen NT, and over the next half hour we'll bring you the very latest news from across the country and beyond. But first, let's start with the day's news highlights. The Ghana Water Company says the Operation Vanguard intervention has not yielded the desired results as illegal mining activities across the country still persist. The managing director of the company, Clifford Berima, who made the observation at Mahia in the Greater Accra region to mark World Water Day, said water at intake points remain polluted. And a group calling itself the Concerned Citizens of Etiwa Landscape has petitioned President Akufo-Addo against government's intended bauxite mining at the Etiwa Forest Reserve. They contend the reserve, which is the source of the Densu, Ayensu and Brim rivers, and if mined, will deprive some 5 million people of potable water. U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Robert Porter Jackson, has expressed disappointment over the huge public outcry which has greeted the Ghana-U.S. Defense Cooperation Agreement. Reacting to the fears by the public about the agreement, he said the U.S. has no intention of establishing a permanent base in Ghana, even though they do have in other African countries. And the National Democratic Congress, NDC, says the proposed security cooperation agreement is a disservice to Ghana's military establishment, which has a rich tradition of professionalism and competence. At a news conference in Accra, the General Secretary of the party, Johnson Esiedu Nketia, insisted the ratification of the agreement could send wrong signals and make Ghana a target of terrorism. And elsewhere, Africa's largest economy and most populous country, Nigeria, as well as 10 others, have failed to sign the agreement to create the African Continental Free Trade Area in Kigali. The African Continental Free Trade Area promises to become one of the world's largest trading blocs. This is still news at 10. Remember, you can hear us live on 3FM 92.7, and if you're on Facebook, you can follow our live stream on Facebook, as well as log on to 3news.com for our live stream. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, the Ghana Water Company says the intervention by Operation Vanguard has not yielded the desired results as illegal mining activities across the country still persist. The managing director, Clifford Berima, who made the observation at Mahia in the Greater Accra region to mark World Water Day, said water at intake points remain polluted.
The pollution of the country's water bodies was key in this year's celebration. According to the Ghana Water Company Limited, most water bodies have been polluted beyond treatment and feared Ghana may not be able to produce drinking water in the near future. It listed crude oil dumping, the discharge of untreated urban domestic waste and other industrial processes as other contributing factors.
When Operation Vanguard was introduced, the turbidity levels improved, and we started using 5 bags of aluminum sulfate from 12. But as at yesterday, we are going back to the original. We are using 10 bags of aluminum sulfate per day. What it means is that we are losing the fight against the Galamsey menace. So Operation Vanguard probably is not the way to go.
He explained the company continues to spend huge sums of money on chemicals to treat raw water, necessitating an increase in water tariffs.
But the issue is, will Public Utility Regulatory Commission allow us to do that? If they don't allow us to do it, and our cost of operation goes very high, what it means is that we'll defer maintenance. And once we defer maintenance, in future the system will collapse.
The director of the Water Research Institute requested government to protect the Volta Lake, which is the only water body in the country which has not been polluted.
Volta Lake is of good quality because there are no Galamsey activities taking place in or around the Volta river systems. If we should discover any mineral as a country around the Volta Lake, I can assure you that we would end up polluting the Volta Lake.
This year's celebration is on the theme Nature for Water.
Right, I have in the studio Tenai Darrell Bosu, who is Deputy National Director of Operations, Arocha Ghana. Mr. Bosu, how are you? Welcome. Thanks very much for coming. We hear it every time, the warning, the stark reality that if we don't take care of our existing water supplies and water bodies, we might be importing water pretty shortly. Now, it appears to me that the anti-Galamsey drive, which among other things was to save our water bodies, you heard Engineer Berima saying it's not yielding the desired results. Have we lost the fight already for water conservation?
Yes, I think myself I'm getting very worried, and like you said, the observation by the engineer is also very real. You know, as you travel around, you still see people, these Galamsey people still at work. The last time I heard the Vanguard team requesting for more resources so that they can cover more ground. It shows you that the fight is not over yet. Maybe we were too quick to say that they've done too well, and so I guess everybody is getting complacent, and I think that is not good.
This is very typical of Ghanaians in terms of action. And that's something we need to
get complacent very careful of. And the water situation, like you see, is getting bad. Like I was saying, they are having to use more chemicals. That shows you that the pollution is still on. And I mean, these warnings, they come like these, and we just kind of ignore them. You get it? And that, for me, is what is worrying. The same way we are talking about several issues about polluting other rivers, and I hear he also mentioned something about if we should discover a mineral close to the Volta Lake. Right now, you also know that there's prospects of possible prospecting of oil.
Mining.
No, even oil.
Right.
Oil and gas in the Volta Basin. So think about it. It might soon not be as clean as you are thinking.
For minerals might be leading us to lose quite more than just the environment. We lose water.
And I think that whenever we start to do things like that, our regulatory systems don't kick in so quick. And even if they do, it's just for, say, a couple of years, and everybody goes back to the same thing. What you're suggesting is that
we're not enforcing existing laws
we are not. We are so relaxed about the regulations such that when people start doing things for the first day, they promise to do good. You know how we do even maintenance.
But at least there are regulations. Where do you think we should start from? Because I mean, I don't want to wake up already. I don't have water in my area, and I buy water. I harvest water. I go through the problem of having to treat the water I harvest to consume, but I pay taxes anyway. But individuals are doing these already. But on the national front, what do you think should be the broader strategy to make sure we're conserving water and we're also not destroying the water bodies that supply us the water?
Okay, so Steve, for me, I think that the best way to tackle this is for policy and legislation to start talking to the issues.
And is that enough?
If policy starts talking to the issue, for example, if policy starts recognizing that natural resources or forest reserves are protecting water bodies and therefore these areas need to be given maximum protection, I think people will get to see that the government is placing priority on these areas and our behavior will also change, okay? If we also start looking at recycling water and all of these things, and even policy itself does not seek to deplete areas that give us water, the mindset of people will change that water is a critical issue. You heard the issue about Cape Town. They didn't just get there in a day. It took several years of some mismanagement and ignorance and negligence of some
like
warnings, exactly. And for Ghana, I think we've heard of this so many times. We take it for granted. And now you know about the issue of even we're talking about water for 5 million people, a forest providing water for 5 million people, and government is just throwing caution to the wind and saying, let's go target it for
That's
bauxite.
the next question I was coming to ask you. The concerned citizens of Itiwa landscape were in Accra today to present a petition to the president. What do you want to achieve with the petition?
Yeah, well, so you know, for a long time, the government, since 2017, when they assumed power, they've been talking about this integrated bauxite industry. It's good. The prospect of bringing resources for development is good. But the fact is that we need money doesn't mean that we should sacrifice everything that we have in this country. Atiwa Forest, which is going to be one of the targets, as has been said by their plans, is one area in this country you don't find it anywhere else. It provides water for 5 million people. And the very climate provided by this forest is also supporting agro-industries, cocoa production. And we are saying that we are not against the mining, but if it comes to Atiwa Forest, it's a place you just can't take for granted and risk it for bauxite.
But Itiwa is huge. I'll hold you briefly. I will come to that. But the Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Kwejo Owusu-Afriyie, says mining bauxite in the Itiwa forest would not necessarily destroy the reserve if the appropriate steps are taken. Responding to questions from the media, the Forestry Commission CEO insisted there are measures to ensure replanting of trees in the forest after any mining activity.
The Atiwa Forest, a surviving rainforest in Ghana, is considered one of West Africa's greatest natural treasures. Its varied ecosystems have given rise to a store of exceptional biodiversity. The forest is also a source of food and water for over 5 million people and home to rare plants and animals. The reserve, however, has been targeted for the mining of bauxite in the country. Government is considering a deal with Chinese companies to develop a $15 billion integrated aluminium industry in the area. Some civil society groups and residents in the catchment area in the East Achim municipality of the Eastern region are of the view it would be sold off to mining companies without considering its relevance in biodiversity. But the Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Kwejo Owusu-Afriyie, says mining would not necessarily destroy the forest.
The very idea that somebody wants to go into the forest and to mine is not, opposed to the law, except that when you do so, then Forestry Commission would ensure that you also plant some areas back so that for every tree that you fell, you have to get other trees planted to cover that. So we are doing that. I am not aware, and I cannot hazard a guess as to the reasons why they want to come to Accra and to see anybody. But if it is what you have said, then let us wait until they come to us and we'll get there.
He explained the role of the Forestry Commission in mining concession.
Let me state here that Forestry Commission's duty is not to give a permit for mining activities. It is the duty of the Minerals Commission to ensure that no mining activities take place where they ought not to. But it is Forestry Commission only comes in where the activity, the person who is going to mine any minerals are in our forest. Our duty is to ensure whether we can give an entry permit for you to go to the forest and then to undertake those activities. And then even before then, we've got to see your program. So yes, some of the forest cover will be gone, but we give them other areas also to plant.
Sir John, Mr. Bosu, Sir John is a politician, but he made a clear statement. He says that measures are in place to replant trees where mining takes place. I'm not being pessimistic, but do you believe him?
Well, I'm finding it very difficult to understand the sudden turnaround of the Chief Executive of the Forestry Commission, because not too long ago he was talking about the fact that this is a place he himself thinks that doesn't need to be touched from bauxite mining. And it's also very blazingly misleading to be saying that you could mine this area and then go and plant somewhere else. I guess he is not really appreciating what goes into bauxite mining. Right. You guys should go to Awaso and see what is happening there. It's actually a complete clearing of the forest. You clear the forest, take up the heap of hill, and that's what you process into aluminium.
Clear the topsoil.
Exactly. You actually take it away. You get it? So you no more have a hill, you are left with a leveled ground. So I find it very misleading to be saying that we're going to allow and then eventually going to plant it. This is not possible. In Ghana here, it just can't happen.
Mr. Bosu, we're grateful for your time. I know we would love to continue with this discussion, but we'll talk again some other time. Derek Bosu is the Deputy National Director of Arocha Ghana. I'm Stephen Enti, and this is News at 10. We're on TV and we're on radio 92.7 as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Robert Porter Jackson, has expressed disappointment at the huge public outcry generated by the Ghana-U.S. Defense Cooperation Agreement. Reacting to public fears about the agreement, he said the U.S. has no intentions of establishing a permanent base in Ghana, even though the U.S. has bases in other African countries. Meanwhile, the opposition National Democratic Congress says the proposed security cooperation agreement is a disservice to Ghana's military establishment, which has a rich tradition of professionalism and competence. At a news conference in Accra, the General Secretary of the party, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, insisted the ratification of the agreement could send wrong signals and make Ghana a target of terrorism. Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament has stated that the agreement is related to two countries and does not really implicate foreign affairs. So what really are the implications on international relations? Professor Vladimir Nchidanso, an international relations expert and director of academic affairs at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, spoke with Alfred Okanse on News 360.
I want to find out from you if it has any foreign affairs implications.
Well, specifically it does, one way or the other. If you watch out, the first agreement referred to in, 2015, was signed by the Minister for Foreign Affairs. So in any case, whether you look from whatever angle you want to look at it, it has some foreign affairs implication. But the Parliament knows which committee to refer to. It has legal implications, it has security implications, military implications. So the appropriate committee, when they accept it, then its implementation has foreign affairs kind of relations also.
But it appears, at least from the documents and what I've seen, it goes beyond the acquisition and cross-service agreement, which was entered into on the 28th of April in 2015. This is a further demand beyond what we did.
Yes, yes. And if you see how cunning the whole thing was, there was a reference first and foremost to the 1998 agreement, a reference to the 2015 agreement, and then an appeal for enhancement. So it was deliberate, very, very deliberate. Appeal
it was
for enhancement.
Deliberate.
Very deliberate. And if the ambassador himself, I think, referred something to the media also some few days ago, talking about the $547 million Millennium Compact that we enjoyed, and again some 400 million or whatever it is, we enjoyed again under the electricity or power, whatever it is. To tell you that, oh, we love you, we've been doing all these things for you, let's enhance our relationship through this military pact. But one thing I'm worried about is the very fact that we in Ghana are not hazarding the horizon properly.
As the U.S. ambassador is saying, he is a bit disappointed about the public outcry that has greeted this particular agreement. You agree with him?
No, the point is this, that I'm also surprised that he should even poke his nose there and believe that the public outcry. If American public is crying, you don't need any other state to tell them that they're crying or they shouldn't cry. The point is this, that people have seen what is happening and they say they don't want it. It's for him to rather tell Ghanaians what is good about it and that kind of thing, and stop there. Our cry should not be his cry. I mean, that is something which I think I agree with him.
You see, after this past couple of days, it's assumed a political angle. Exactly. And the moment it comes MPP, NDC, then the fine detail is forgotten, and then we focus on the politics. What are the fine details of this agreement we should avert our minds to as we discuss this?
Before I go on to that, the quick one, and this is what I'm hammering. Unfortunately, Parliament, instead of sitting down, securities, everybody's, instead of sitting down and going to the nitty-gritty of the whole thing and debating it in a bipartisan way and coming out with what is good for Ghana, are playing football with it. And that is what the ambassador has seen, and that is why he's poking his nose there. Now, the nitty-gritty is very simple. America is trying to make all those kind of notes all over Africa. I think I have a document here your viewers may not see. If you watch out, look at all the places where they want some specific notes. You know, it is part of their international architecture for their own security.
And you forewarned government.
Last year I did. In an article, I warned government that this is coming. You know, but I think government officials are not interested in intellectual writings. You know, I warned about Guantanamo. They came. The whole thing is such that America wants to take the whole world as part of their security terrain. That at any point in time when they have to move, they have to move. So this particular document creates a situation where America is looking for a node, a small space, not a big base. There are three categories in the base level. This is the last of that. It's a node. It's a small point where they could rapidly deploy their troops, rapidly engage, rapidly use that base to deploy in other places and that kind of thing. We have given them that thing already. There's an enhancement.
Right. So there's a legitimate reason to be worried.
There's a very legitimate reason to be worried. One basic thing we should understand, that when we have given them all these, when they are using it, they wouldn't tell us what they want to do. Think of Tanzania, think of Kenya. When the bombing came, when Americans went in there, thousands of Kenyans died.
And the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Gloria Kufu, says Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are working assiduously to bring into effect the judgment of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Seas, ITLOS. She added Ghana would address similar disagreements over boundaries with Benin and Togo through negotiations, which she says is cost-effective.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice made this known when executives of the Ghana Energy Awards presented an honorary award to her in recognition of her immense contribution to the energy sector. The team, led by the former chairman of the Energy Commission, Dr. Kwame Ampofo, said the team she put across for the ITLOS arbitration is commendable. He urged the AG to help in sealing the leakages in the oil sector.
The ruling that your outfit had pursued so persistently since 2014, and the collaboration you had with your predecessor, we thought that it is something phenomenal that has happened to the Ghana energy sector and that it needs to be recognized.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice noted the arbitration process was a learning curve, which has come to reinforce the peaceful relationship that existed between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire.
As I speak now, the two countries are collaborating and have put together their respective teams that will sit together and give effect. There are maps to be drawn. The decision itself is yet to be translated onto paper. We had submitted an application to the UN on the continental shelf, and although it was being looked on favorably, it had to be stayed pending the outcome of that decision.
She hinted Ghana will engage Togo and Benin to settle a similar boundary dispute.
We think that we must put litigation behind us. We think that the first option should be negotiation. And therefore, the other countries with whom we share boundaries, such as Benin and Togo, we will engage and resolve the matter amicably.
Former Attorney General and Minister for Justice Marietta Brua-Piopong in 2014 initiated an arbitration with Côte d'Ivoire over the disputed oil-rich C-100 territory after over-decade talks for amicable settlement failed. The Special Chamber of the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, ITLOS, in September 2017 ruled in favor of Ghana in the 3-year-long maritime dispute.
That's how we wrap up with News at 10. Thank you very much for making time. On behalf of the crew here, good night. Up next is Sports Unlimited.